is concerned. In the present situation, now the only thing what we have to analyze the present situation, or we have to update everything, every day, every moment at the present situation, that is in the name of taxations. Most of our commerce teachers are definitely aware that the only current subject every year the subject will going to change and the textbook will going to change, and we need to update everything who teach the taxations. That's why I'm always introduce myself as a student of taxation rather than a teacher of taxation, because it requires updating every day. When you want to update every day, otherwise the knowledge what we are acquired, what the knowledge we have, that should be definitely outdated for the present context. Every day we have to update it, otherwise you will not be completed ourselves, and we not consider ourselves as a teacher, rather than we can consider as a student, because we have to update it every day. That's my intention, because I'm a student of taxation. Every day I have to update it myself, and also I request my teachers and my teacher participants to update it every day. This is the subject why I should call myself as a student of taxation rather than a teacher of taxation. Every teacher definitely teach, but it requires to update everything. Now, the option is given to you. Trends in Indian tax system. I think most of you are aware that every day there is a changes taken place in the Indian tax system when and where the economy is changing in the name of different policies, different situation, economic condition, and the social parameters, whatever the parameter we are using for levy and collection of a taxation, everything will definitely going to be changed. Keep all those things in mind. The government, the tax department, the revenue department of the central government of India, the task force at both state level and the national levels, and the Industrial Confederation of India has a task force to update every information to the government authorities. It has to be retuned every day. At least not practical on every day. We have to retune ourselves at least once in a year. That's what we are going to celebrate as a festival in the name of tax festival, in the name of presentation of our budget. Now, when you're going to present the budget, I think more number of aspirants of a student of taxation, we are expecting a lot from the budget. And we have to update ourselves what was happening earlier, what will be happen tomorrow, and what is going on today. Keeping all the three trends, what was happen, what is happening, and what will be happen, keeping all the three dimension, we have to retune ourselves as a student of taxation. Otherwise, it's a tough time for teach the taxation as a students. Now, when you are a teacher, first of all, I request all my participants, it is an interaction between one teacher with the another teachers. That is a senior teacher with a junior teachers. Keep that aspirants in mind. You try to interact with me whenever it is required, whenever some clarification, whenever some kind of an addition. It is the platform is open for all of you. Please interact with the situation and try to educate ourselves. Not only educated by yourself, try to educate me also, because I am already considered as a student. Learning is a continuous process, particularly in taxation is concerned. Now, there is a one kind of a tax reforms is required every day. No, tax reforms is the concept where we are going to use with the multiple objectives in mind. That's what we are usually the government of India and the government of Karnataka and the global system of global economic systems are doing. What do you mean by tax reforms of taken place? Retuning the tax structure, whatever we are existing, for the changing economic situation to fulfill our objectives. Now, our government, our system is already committed by self. We want to achieve the maximum social welfare to the society. We're keeping so many parameters in mind, maybe economic growth, maybe increasing GDP, increasing the standard of living, everything. Keep all those things. There are a lot of provisions are made under Income Tax Act. Before that, you should have an idea, whatever the present tax system at present in the name of Indian tax system, Even though we are almost completed more than 1.5 decade, most of the provision, most of the ideology was the originated from the British people because it was earlier. The provisions, the existing structure is still there on the base of the British people. The British people was levied the tax with the different aims, but at the same thing is retuned from the present situation. Can you go back to the history? The tax is levied on the person who have more number of windows in England or UK, because he can sustain the humidity from outside to inside by opening a window. To measure the ability of a taxpayer on the basis of more number of windows. But now the situation is completely changed. The ability of a taxpayer is going to assess in a different dimensions. The one of the dimension what we are paying the tax is income tax. But the tax reforms, payment of income tax, a layman can pay whenever the situation demands. For example, GST, knowingly or unknowingly, the layman is going to pay the tax. But the intention of tax reforms or the logical end of a tax reforms to try to understand by the common people without knowing that it cannot be fulfilled or a good tax system or the global tax system or a educative tax system or a graduate educative system. We have a tax system. How many of we people has understanding the existing tax system by payment of income tax and complete the tax compliances under Income Tax Act, though as a teacher of commerce? How many of you have tried to completed your formalities for submission of the Form 16 and the next process? All are commerce teachers, commerce and management teachers. How many of you are doing? That is the biggest question in front of us. When we coming to this kind of a question, we are taking the assistance of the chartered accountant or a tax consultant or any other people who are doing for outsourcing. Whether this will lead to tax compliance. A layman can try to understand what is the formalities and what is the procedure and why he is paying the tax to the government. That is the tax compliance. You should understand each and every corner of the tax system. But when it comes to the graduative tax system, the objective behind any kind of a tax should be more than what we have. No doubt, the collection of a revenue is the only source, but providing social justice, providing legal justice, providing economic justice to the society or a people, it is foremost important rather than the collection of tax revenue. In providing social justice, how our existing tax system is retuning through the tax reforms. Standard of living is changing every day and ensuring the economic justice, the per capita income, the income of a country, the growth of a GDP is changing every day. Even we have a lot of up downs during the pandemic situation. How we have to retuning the tax structure to meet the requirement of the governmental source. You should be keep one thing always in your mind. Any government, whether it is a state government or a local government or the central government, 2/3 of the revenue is generated from the tax. Almost around 69% of the revenue collected by the government at present is from tax. Now, this is the major source of a tax revenue to the government. How to retuning without affecting the tax revenue or increasing tax revenue to the government on the one side. And during these kind of ups and downs of the economic system, this is definitely a challenging for the government on the one side, and it would be a challenging for understanding the logic behind. Now, when you are in a student of a taxation and you become class or the students who have thought for a becomes students, the logical behind teaching or understanding the concept is only a mathematical accuracy, and you're going to calculate what is the tax liability and what will be the consequences. But now, as a student of taxation, you try to understand there are a lot of provisions are given, lot of rebates are given, lot of concessions are given, lot of exemptions are given. Why all these things are given to an individual? To ensure the tax reforms by providing social justice, economic justice, and legal justice. Everything has to understand before. For example, HRA exemption is given to you. Why? What is the intention to give the HRA exemption? Now the government of India, earlier it was one house was exempted. Now the two houses were exempted. Try to understand the logic behind. Earlier it was what is the necessity of increasing from one house to second house? No, these things are very, very important to understand the logic behind or the core objective behind providing any kind of a deductions or a concessions or a rebate or an exemption under the tax law. Reforms are taken place. The one of the important of the tax reforms is simplifications. As a teachers, can you try to educate your student about the simplification in calculation of a tax liability? No doubt, there are so many software packages are there. Those packages will definitely give the income and everything that will be automatically calculated. But we need not to be a mathematical oriented of our commerce student. We try to be tax students. A calculator can definitely done as per the requirement rather than they become students. But how the become student is different, or the master degree or a commerce student is different from understanding the concept of a taxation. It is very important for the particular situations. Now reforms are taking place. More number of taxes are put together, introduce the one concept called GST. Can the introduction of a GST is ensuring the objectives of tax reforms? That is the biggest question in front of we people. We have to critically analyze, because I try to understand that I am discussing with another experts. That is what the teachers. I am not educating ourselves or interaction with the students. I am educating by myself and try to educate with the other counterpart of my teachers. Can you keep all those things in mind? In no way there is a gap between myself and yourself. When this is the situation, you try to understand, can all the objectives before introduction of a GST is achieved? It is the biggest question mark in front of you. No doubt, we are clubbing more number of almost 40 taxes are clubbing together. We put it in the name of GST, one tax for one nation, one tax. And still we have 5 different slabs of GST. What is the intention to introduction of one GST with the 5 slabs? Can they achieve the core objectives of GST? And even a lot of the things what we are happening, most of the tax reforms are IT form. The efficiency of the tax administration is definitely increasing, taking the assistance of the information technology with a lot of computer and a lot of networking in the registration and submission and all clearance. No doubt, but it is achieved to the core. They have more number of GST scams are coming to picture in claiming of the input tax, in claiming of output tax, and there is no proper records are maintaining, and the prices are different from one place to another place. Even the intention of introduction of a GST is try to differentiate price among the consumers, but still we differentiate the pricing method, and even under a single method of GST. Well, why this was happening by introduction of GST? The objective behind to introduction of a GST is to achieve the normal pricing. We should not migrating the trading between one state to another state, but still it is going on. How to tackle this? In what way the GST councils are approaching all these things? And every tax students and a common man, anybody can approach the GST council about all those things. Definitely GST council will take these issues into consideration and retuning the existing tax structure. Still GST is in settling period. Now when the GST comes into the situations, information technology based administrations, how much of time you require for registration, how much of time you require for submission of your registration or the submission of your the filing of your returns, and how much of time you require for input tax credit. That is a biggest challenge in the case of the central government to settle the tax credit to the respective states on the one side, and the respective assessee or the person who is getting his eligibility to get the input tax credit is another task. But once it is introduced in the form of the technology base, it should be immediately, as early as possible, it has to be settled. Even it takes more than 3 months or 1 quarter. How can the businessman can wait for a 3/4 to get his tax for the payment of tax? That too, this kind of a situation where we keep the information technology. India is a hub for information technology. To use this, to try to mitigate all these loopholes in GST. And the one more, reduction in administration cost is the one of the important objectives keeping the tax reforms. Now you have a concept of the tax administration, the principle of economy. Whatever the money you're going, collection of a 1 rupee of a tax should be the collection of the payment or the expenditure or the cost incurred for the collection of 1 rupee of tax. It should be meager, even not 4 paise for 1 rupee. That is the earlier one. Now even it is not 4 paise, even less than 2 paise. Can we achieve? Can we achieve the avoidance of tax? Can you reduce the evasion of tax after implementation of a GST? It's definitely in front of please.
Next.
Please switch off your video calls, the participants. ಏನಾದರೂ ಮಾತಾಡೋದಿದ್ರೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ please interact with me. No, the tax compliance is very important. As a assessee, as a teacher, as a consultant, as a responsible people of the society, what was happening in case of taxation and what is happening and what is your expectations? Now, tax terrorist. That is the one concept we are usually consider. More number of tax terrorists, more number of scams, more number of IT raids, more number of things, and the more number of black money is coming out. Then this will definitely can be eradicated with the tax reforms in the name of a compliance. Every day we find in the newspaper, every day we find in the TV station. There is some kind of IT ready. We have find 1,000 crores, 2,000 crores, 10,000 crores. What is happening when these kind of a tax system is going on? Where we fail? We cannot reform the tax structure to the extent to mitigate all those things. It is increasing trend. Every day it is increasing. And the money is flowing to the rich people. And in the name of a black money, I think you understand the concept of black money without payment of any kind of a tax. This will be the situation. How to overcome with the tax reforms? We have to think over this kind of situation. Otherwise, tax compliance will definitely not achieve. We cannot call it ourselves. Ours is a graduative educative tax system. Educative tax system, okay, by providing all these three justice, social justice, economic justice, and the legal justice. But we want to be educative tax system. We try to reduce the tax avoidance, tax evasion, and we also try to the marginal rate of tax should be very meager. It is very low. It should be try to decreasing. Now, when you come to the implication of a savings. Now, after introduction of a new slabbing system to the existing income tax, we have old slab and a new slab. When you go to the new slab, no question of deduction, no question of exemption, anything. Directly we are going to levy the tax. Can the core objective behind providing all kind of a rebate, exemption, concession is to achieve these objectives? We have to think twice as a student of a taxation. Teaching and mathematical calculation is totally different. From the mathematical point of view, it is okay. You have 5 lakhs of rupees income, you have definitely calculate the formula, the slabs given, mathematically you can calculate it, that's science the matter. But as a student of taxation, what is the necessity of giving exemption, concession, rebates, and other things? All rebate, concession, exemption will definitely ensure some kind of a justice to the society and the economic justice to the economic system, and we will provide some kind of a social justice. Without all those things, simply going to adopt it in the name of a tax reform with a new slab of tax system without claiming any deduction, If you're not claiming any deduction in the name of a professional tax or in the name of any other tax, that definitely means to double taxation. When global system have thinking over how to overcome the double taxation at the global level, why do you give more scope for double taxation at the state level or at the domestic level? You think all these things in different dimension, then we'll definitely find the answer to all these things. And we try to minimize the slight probability of tax avoidance and the evasion. New tax system is definitely provide some kind of an assurance about the avoidance and evasion of a tax, particularly in personal income tax with a new slab. No scope for avoidance and the evasion of tax. I put one question before you. Are we, as a teacher of commerce or a teacher of student of a taxation, are you proud to be a prompt taxpayer? It's the biggest question touching your soul. You should be in a position to interact with. Are you an prompt taxpayer? When the situation is coming to, please.
Yes, sir, we also try to avoid the some tax liability, sir. We also searching what is the default in taxation. Then we try to reduce our tax liability, sir.
That's the spirit behind to make use of the provision is good, but the core objective behind providing provision is try to understand. That's why we have an educative class or a tax compliance. Giving exemption, you claim an exemption with an intention or a supporting for the tax consultant is good. I put one question before you. You want to claim HRA exemption. You have your own house. You have your some other places to reside yourself. Even though the provision is there to claim an HRA exemption, whether it is a necessity to claim the exemption of HRA under Section 10 or not? That is the biggest question in front of we people are comes. And more number of income tax certificates were given by our publics or revenue authority. And what the income we declared ourselves to the tax department is the only income. Yes, to some extent, we are very prompt because our salary is completely accountable directly by the government. That's why our salary income is definitely accountable. We are paying a tax. We ourselves proud to say that we are prompt taxpayer. Apart from the salary income, can you think twice before other than the salary income, whether we are in prompt enough to pay the tax for other source of income except the salary? If the same thing is applicable to entire society, definitely our government, our situation, our economic system will definitely upload it. More than 60% of the income earned by the people in a developing country like India is not properly accountable for taxation. Still, for your information, we have more than 136 crores of population, out of which only 3.5 crores of people are paying the tax. Out of 3.136 crores, only 3.5 crores are paying the tax and 15 crores are submitting the returns. Look at the percentage of submission of returns. Can you believe this? Out of 136 crores of population, only 15 crores are submitting the returns, out of which 3.5 crore people are paying the tax. Remaining 11.5 people are submitting their nil return or complete the formalities. If this is the situation, how to measure the economy? Based on the statistics available in the Department of Revenue, the government will take a decision. Say, for example, if you're going to take the income up to 1 lakh is exempted for some kind of an benefit reaped from the government. So, for example, a particular category is exempted from getting all this benefit if the income is below 1 lakh. If the income is really below 1 lakh, simply the minimum wage act or the government programs offered by the government for the people, if you take into consider, the income provided by the government is definitely more than 1 lakh. This is the situation. The measuring of income, submission of the data is very, very poor. That's why the government of India is slowly and steadily bring all our economic activities under a single network within the present system. That's why we are linking PAN with Aadhaar card, Aadhaar with the bank with all kind of transaction, and we try to avoid cash transaction and try to do with the online transaction. And in a days to come, for anything and everything, we have to hold one a single card, and we will definitely tracing all this information and all economic activities belonging to an individual, where we want to measure the income of an individual, not for the payment of a tax, but we want to know the turnover of an individual from the point of view of the economic situation to measure the society or the economic standard. This will be the situation at the present. But we are submitting the returns. What do you mean by assessment? We are definitely taking into consideration assessment, and we are definitely giving some textual meaning for our students. But out of 15 crores or the people are submitting their filing their returns, we will definitely take into scrutiny of returns. That is, at present, the entire thing is made by the automated system with the help of technology. Out of 15 crores, only 3% of the returns are taken into consideration for a scrutiny. Only 3%. That will be automatically selected by the computer, that is the technology itself. When you take the scrutiny for 3%, you received more number of letters under section 149 from the government. What I think the peoples are why they are shying or why they are denying to approach to the income tax department, because we are lack of opportunities. If you receive one letter from income tax department, why do you are worried? There should be some kind of a difference of opinion in respect of the submission of a return or submission or disclosing of our income or the procedure what we are following and the procedure what they are expecting. Some kind of a gap. If somebody is visited to our department, don't think it is a ride of a black money. They are collecting some kind of an information. All right will definitely not in a position of a negative thinking in the society. So many rights are taken, income tax rights are going on. It is not to write the black money. They are collecting some kind of an information. That's a wrong notion to the society. Income tax is the writing. Now keep all those things in mind. As a student of taxation, we try to educate our peoples about all those things. Different. If we sort out with the difference of opinion, sit together by submitting there are so many documents or evidence that will solve the problem. Why do you worry about all those things? That mindset has to be developed in the minds of the people or the society, or at least in the minds of the assessee. Then definitely the compliance of the tax will definitely achieve. Otherwise, we will definitely treat them as a tax authority or the tax people as a terrorist. We are ourselves shy towards the tax, because when we are a prompt, what is the necessity of the considering those people as citizens? Or why do you are lacking behind? And why do you are not in a position to understand the situation? But as a student of taxation, as a teacher, you should educating your student rather than calculation of a mathematics. Things, what is the tax liability? Yes, they are definitely doing. You try to understand every nook and the provision of the taxation. That's why we are converting the existing tax system into a graduative tax system. Otherwise, tax system, anybody can understand. Even the PU student or the SSLC student can definitely mathematical calculation can understand. But the core objective behind avoiding all those things should try to understand. I'm already told you. After introduction of a new slab system under income tax without claiming any exemption, there will be no scope for any kind of investment. Can the Indian economy is in a position to run this show without the assistance of the savings from the middle class people? We need to channelize our income with a different avenues by the government through the income tax. Investment desired revenues are there. You should be educating in the means of providing tax deduction, tax breaks, and tax exemption to those kind of a people. Society is expecting a lot from that. If you introduce the new slab where we are getting some kind of an, I will put one question before. As a teacher of how all of you are paying the tax, the use quantum of tax, because all of you are UGC people, which one is more useful from the point of view of all respects, whether it is the earlier slab or the new slab? When you are asking, somebody is asking, as a teacher of a commerce, you should educate whom it is appropriate, to whom is more benefited, to whom is going to choose. You should be in a position to educate them. And not only educate them, any conclusion will definitely come to the conclusion, because this is the kind of a case. When these kind of a case studies are given to you, you try to understand the things that are multi on, and we try to directing the public investment on the one side to strengthen the tax system to bring the economic development. Yes, every year the governmental expenditures increase, and we are going to show the budget. That the budget is very important. The deficit budget. More number of people we are. What do you mean by deficit budget? And where we have to deficit? What is the fiscal deficit? What is the deficit? Must be within 3% of fiscal deficit should be run by the effective government. Sometimes when we are in Nirmala Sitharaman was the last, we are touching 3.9. It is a bad signal for the economic development because it is a pandemic situation. The physical deficit must be not more than 3%. Then is the, even though the deficit financing is definitely the deficit budgeting going. But now the question is not that when you are retuning the tax structure, when you are changes in the tax structure, reforms in the tax structure, can you achieve all these things? This is the one of the important question what we are going to take. Economic decisions are taken place on basis of these kind of issues. To have more deficit financing, the economic decision will definitely affect our policy. Our standard of living is at measured at a lower level. Our level is measured. Can we have only 9% of around 9.5% of our growth of GDP? If you put all together the meaning of GDP and GDP will going to take into consideration, in reality, our GDP growth is not 9.5%. Our GDP growth is more than 50%. But we are not accountable properly through our tax system. That is the biggest loopholes. Where we have to plug all these things as a student of a taxation, it is definitely very much needed. Okay. In a days to come, scrutiny of assessment will definitely increasing from 3% to at least 10%. We are definitely going to flag all kind of loopholes and try to be educate tax system, the graduate to educate tax system. But now the question arises: can we strengthen? We are number of assessees are increasing after the demonetization. The principle or the law, or what is the mindset of a taxpayer or a teacher? Why the sudden increases in the demonetizations? Then you simply we can come to conclusion that almost all the black money holders are disclosing their money. That's why disclosing of black money will leads to increases in the kind of an SST. But as a scholar, as a student of taxation, we have to think why the sudden increases is taken. Even though it's not even 10% of the associates, peoples are not comes under the purview of we are shining. Economy, Indian economy is shining. The growth of GDP is good. The economic development is good. In all parameter, we are good. Why we are not in good in respect of the submission return or the number of associates comes under the purview of income tax? Still, it is not even 10%. That is the biggest question in front of the taxation code. And majority of the people have definitely have an income, but they are not submitting. That's why we need some kind of a reforms here. Whatever the income tax what we have, we can need some kind of reforms. We feel that it's a burden. The India is the second highest rate of income tax in India, next to France. But even though they have a very good systematic administration in respect of the income tax, there are a lot of punishments are taken. Let us send him out from the country itself. If he fails to pay the compliance of, not to pay the income tax, to fails the compliance of income tax, payment of tax is automatically done. You should fails to complete the formalities of the compliance of a tax, we are eligible to get the punishment, or you deserve to get the punishment. But in India, even for the payment of tax, we are not getting any kind of. That is the situation where we have. But as a student of taxation, We have to think where we are there, where we have to go, and where we are going to touch the global standard. That is very, very important in respect of the income tax, or it may be GST, or it may be any other country. The WHO is demanding to overcome all these kinds of a tax barrier in the global system. But earlier, maybe go back to 1991, the custom duty was 400%. Now, the IGST is almost reduced to 15%. And in some of the special cases, it may be now more than 40% or 45%, whatever it may be. There, the WHO's influence on the Indian economic system and the policymaker try to reduce and mitigate and to overcome all these kind of taxes. But we want the economy should be free. If the economy is open for everything, from the point of the taxation, I am saying, yes, our economy is already open. From the point of the taxation, no import duty, no question of export duty, everything is free. Can Indian economy adjust to the situations? That is the biggest question in front. How to tackle with the neighboring country, how to tackle with the competition, how to generate the revenue by the government, how to maintain the growth rate. These are all the different challenges for development. Keeping the revenue point of view, because the government is collecting the total revenue, out of which 2/3 revenue is from the taxation. This is the information where you are going to, and the treatment of the people. Still, India is a developing country. We have two extremes: the poor people on the one side, and the rich peoples in the globe are on the other side. When we have two extreme ends in the economic situation, providing social justice will definitely achieve. If you go to the football during the pandemic, the people are suffering even without a lunch. But if you go to the other extent, the people have 1,000 crores of rupees they are depositing in the other. I think what we are happening yesterday is including the leading peoples investing their money or investing their out of their track out the outside. This is the two how to ensure the justice. So that is what the social justice. Keeping these two experiments, making using the weapon in the form of taxation. You should provide justice to both these people. The objective of taxation is to redistribute or reallocate or reducing the gap between haves and have-nots. Whatever it may be. Can you assuring all those things? This is the biggest question in front of us. Mostly ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕಾಣುತ್ತೆ ಇವೆರಡರ ನಡುವೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಅಂತರ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. When this is the situation, how to mitigate this? It is definitely a challenge before you as a student of taxation. But mitigation is very important. Doing is social justice on the other side, and we try to getting the people with the one side. But in case of an industry, again, like India, providing or sanctioning is very easy. But taking back any kind of a benefit or any kind of a situation or any kind of a the system taken back, it's tough time for the situation. This is the situation. How to balance this? And the gender differences are almost, but still you find more number of abusement in the society. When you go back, work-life balance, in the name of work balance, we provide more number of benefits to the female associate to balance the work life. But we are treating on par with both male and females are equal, but still there is a kind of economic injustice between these two is going on. Not in all the cases, in some cases. But it is the duty of the government to all those things through our taxation. The weapon in the weapon called taxation. How to tackle with this thing? This is the biggest challenge in front of we people to analyze these kind of situations. So you a lot of to overcome all these things. Tax reforms committees are formed. Tax task forces are there. Tax department is going on. What all these people are doing every day or every year or every month, it is the duty of a student to update ourselves. Do you know? The budget is prepared more than 250 IAS officer under the secret room for more than 1.5 months under the ground floor in the parliament. Almost more than 250 IAS cadre officers, almost 1.5 months, without linking to the society or without linking to the public. They are doing the secret work. This is the situation there in India when you are going to present the budget. What is our expectation as a student of taxation? That's why I am called it a festival. The lost of justice, lost of suggestions, lost of educating, lot of things we have to be grabbed from the situation. That's why every day we are a student of taxation to update ourselves, to retuning ourselves, to gather everything, and we have to set in such a way teacher. Otherwise, teaching of other subjects is totally different from teaching of a taxation. And teaching for mathematical accuracy is totally different from teaching from the theoretical point of view. Most of the professions are doing their practical work with a mathematical accuracy. But as a teacher, we are not only mathematical accuracy, we try to understand the logic behind any kind of attacks. Now, for example, says if you give the consultant calculation of cess is 2% higher education, 2%, 1% on the secondary higher education says market sites in agriculture, they are calculated put together 4% based on their income, tax liability. But as a teacher, somebody is asked you what is cess, why we are living, what is the objective, 50%, why we are living, why we are calculated separately, where we are putting in the separate accounts. As a teacher of a taxation, we definitely try to understand. Cess is not a kind of a tax. It is a revenue collected by the government based on the tax to meet a particular problem in the society for a short period of time. Once the problem is mitigated or completely wiped out, the tax has to be taken back by the government. And the money must goes to a particular aspect. That's why we are calculated separately. Mathematical accuracy on 1,000 tax amount, we are calculating 4%, it comes to 40 rupees. That is different thing. But we have to educating all these things. That's why a student of a taxation has to understand everything. Provisions are there, thousands of provisions, thousands of amendments, lakhs of subsections are there. And not only all those things, every day in almost 30 states of high courts and the Supreme Court, from first bench to the highest bench of 14 judges bench, the case studies are going on, the decisions are taken place. On the decision, we have to teach the subject. That is very important. That's why more number of taxation books are linking with the case study. If you want to visit the case study, the book itself is given login to the such a kind of a website. You try to understand there is 1,000 pages are there. Can as a student of a taxation, we have to update all those things. It is impossible, but still you have some kind of an information, at least a major case, other major decisions. One decision is taken place, another day that will be definitely law. But the same will not applicable for all the situation. But that should be not applicable for all the associates. But as a teacher, as the professional teacher, as a you have to think twice. But I put one more problem behind you. When you are teaching the subject of income tax or any kind of it, please don't look subject from one dimensions. Particularly in a BCom, we are as per the author direction, as per the textbook, as per the information available, we are one-sided and we are happy with the problem is solved. But as a student of taxation, we try to look at the same problem from the dimension of the tax authority, what they are expecting, and the same concept of the tax consultant, what they are doing, and as one of the way is for the assessment point of view. From the assessee point of view is totally different. From the tax authorities point of view, that's totally different. From the consultant point of view, it is a mediator between the tax authorities and the tax assessees. But we want to looking or preparing our student with the multi dimensions. Definitely, the gap between the tax assessment on the tax scrutiny or whatever the thing is in the hands of the tax administration will definitely mitigate the problem that will lead to fulfill more compliance of our tax. Myself the tax liability. Why should I go to for a consultant to reduce my tax burden? If you teach, you're educating your student from other side of you, definitely your student will definitely, one side is looking as an associate, on the other side is looking as a consultant, on the one more side definitely is looking as a you try to discriminate between these two and what exactly the gap between these three. If you try to educate them, that definitely the
Has or answered us.
Raghu sir. Hello, Kannan sir.
Please, sir, please, sir. So, unmute your mic. So, unmute your mic.
Hello.
Sir, so, good evening, sir.
Sir, resource person is unmuted.
Yes, I think he is not available, sir.
It's not available. It is exited, sir.
Disconnected, I think.
Disconnected. Yes. So please, anybody inform to HRDC, sir. HRDC also muted, sir.
I come, sir. I come, sir.
HRDC.
Sorry, sir.
Tell me, sir. Tell me, sir.
Sorry, sir. 2 o'clock, I think you're sharp. Ready for that.
No, yes, sir. First, Mika.
yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
HRDC?
Yeah.
Madam.
Clear.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Clear.
Yeah. No, I think sorry for the disturbance. The internet was not properly working, but it is now when it comes to the situation is concerned. When we are a student of a taxation, we have to educate our students in at least minimum 3 different dimensions. The necessity of assessing the tax liability or taking the assistance from the consultant or taking the difference of gap between the tax administrator and the what we are calculated as a tax assessee, it definitely mitigated. But we have to orient our student, we have to educate our student with 3 at least minimum dimension, then the problem will definitely solve. And the one more thing where we have to update ourselves for a teaching of taxation, we should create a platform. We should involve the professionals or the teachers from other side. We try to educate about the concept until now in the textual matter, in the academic section, the academic matter, taxation is the commerce. But all the people living in the societies are directly pay the tax. either in the name of direct tax or in the form of indirect tax. Why we should restrict the study of income tax for only for common student? That is the biggest problem what we are in the syllabus it concern. I think more number of people are using the tax terrorist. Why? We are shying, why we are not properly accounting, why we are denied to submit the return, when we are denied to open up with the economic system and providing some kind of a justice. This is the biggest issues in kind of a, but as a student of taxation or as a teacher of taxation, we have to educate our students, not just the theoretical or a textbook version of the things, at least in the later cases, not in the initial stage, about the spirit behind, the moral behind. Not to refer the textbook in the, you try to refer the textbook belongs to the Bare Act. You try to understand the objective behind, the core objective behind levy of any kind of a tax. Once you understand the Bare Act, then you go for a business law or income tax law. After understanding the spirit behind the law, then you educate them for application in the name of a practice. That's why first you have to educate about the Bare Act, that is the concept, core objective behind. Then you comes to the income tax law. Then you comes to the income tax law and the practice. After completion of the practice, you're taking case by case. Depends on your, that's why our entire syllabus is prescribed, designed in such a way after complete. Will definitely educate the students how the spirit behind, why is going on, what is happening, rather than calculating or ensuring the mathematical accuracy. That will definitely more fruitful for the students, and definitely those students. Now there is a provision, early learn scheme. Most of the BCom completed student can enroll in the income tax department for submission of the GST return, and even submission of the income tax return. They will fetch you 150 rupees for each returns. In the beginning, it may be definitely take 10 to 15 minutes, but once you experience hand-on experience, one return will not even fetch you 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, as for submission of a return. This is the situation when we are a student of taxation, we have to update it and teaching to the student community where we have. Otherwise, teaching of the same thing in the textbook with a different author, with a different context, with a different situation. I think student is income tax will be like some other subject. Otherwise, we cannot test the income tax subject. You cannot test the sweet or the smell of the income tax. Otherwise, it should be a very tough time to understand the income tax practically. What I am talking, mathematically, everybody is good. They're scoring 95%, but they don't know how to submit it. They don't know educating his parents. He is completed masters in taxation with a specialization. That is the situation where we are living. This is the situation. I think now the platform is kept open for you to discuss. It is one side. I'll definitely not provide any kind of a justice. I'm already told you, you are also a counterpart with as a teachers group. Definitely, I will also educate it through your interaction, and definitely it looks to be a fruitful discussion. I am looking forward from your side. Please keep your.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, sir. I have some questions.
Yes, please. Don't say question. It should
Okay, sir.
be
Clarification.
interaction.
Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, clarification. Okay. Please.
It is regarding new tax regime or new tax structure.
Yes, yes.
So why they have changed, sir? Earlier they're giving deductions and all. and we
Yeah.
used to take and pay the taxes.